Rarely in NBA history do we see a rookie come out the gates and play at an all-star level. There are clear examples of this in the early days of the NBA, with guys like Wilt Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar finishing in the top 5 of MVP voting in their first season. And then you get to the 80s and 90s, where guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and Tim Duncan all finished with an All-NBA appearance at the end of their rookie season. But it's been a while since we've seen a first-year player dominate the game. In fact, it hasn't been since LeBron that we've seen a rookie show signs of all-time greatness in their first season. That is, until Victor Wembanyama came into the league. He already had expectations of being an all-time great before we even knew what team got the first overall pick. And after the Spurs won the draft lottery, expectations were even higher, considering they just went through 20 years of success with Tim Duncan. And through Wemby's first year, while the team's success isn't quite there yet, he's completely exceeded all expectations I had for him on both sides of the ball. And if Wemby keeps up at this pace, there's a world where he's going to be a top 10 player in the league by the end of 2025. So what makes Wembanyama such a great player? And how realistic are those pre-draft expectations now that we've seen flashes of domination in the NBA? Before we answer those questions, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to watch more NBA videos just like this one. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's start off by talking about the thing that makes Wemby so great at just 20 years old, and that's his defense. Everyone knew he would be an impactful shot blocker and paint defender when he entered the league, but no one knew just how dominant he would be. This season, Wembanyama has a block percentage of 5.9%, meaning he blocks 5.9% of the opposing team's shots, and that's first in the entire league. And when opponents decide to shoot at the rim, Wemby causes teams to shoot 3.1% worse from the paint, and he also causes teams to shoot 3.3% less from the paint when he's on the court. And what that tells me right there is that not only is Wembanyama an elite paint protector, but he's also one of the only players ever to intimidate players not to shoot. It's something I've never seen in a high volume, and something that's only going to grow more prominently as he and his team gets better. But what also makes him so impressive isn't just his paint presence, it's also his efforts in transition, where he's in the 93rd percentile in transition points allowed per 100 possessions. It's his defensive instincts to close out no matter where the player is on the court, as evidenced by opponents shooting 2.7% worse from 3 when he's defending them. And just from an overall defensive perspective, teams score 10.5 points less per 100 possessions when Wemby is on the court, a number that's one of the best in the league, despite his team having one of the 10 worst defenses in the NBA. And the scary part is that he's doing all of this as a rookie who just turned 20 years old. It's rare that we see someone as polished on one side of the ball as Wemby is in their rookie season. In fact, the only prior examples to Wemby that I could think of is Kareem in 1970 and Wilt in 1960. But even then, both of those guys had all-star caliber players and a solid core next to them. Wemby is dominating defensively with well below average defenders surrounding him. So we all know how great on defense he is, but what Wemby will need to work on is his offensive game. It feels wrong to critique Wemby considering he's still a 20-point scorer who has the ability to get a bucket at all 3 levels. And one could absolutely blame Wemby's supporting cast, who hasn't set him up as effectively as you would like. But there's certain nitpicks to his offensive game that would need to change for him to become that top scorer he has the potential to be. For starters, Wemby needs to get better as a catch-and-shoot player. The goal with an offensive possession for the Spurs in 2024 would be to get the ball to Wemby, particularly in the paint against a smaller defender, and let him score over the top of them. But that just isn't going to work every time Wemby gets the ball. In the modern NBA, he needs to display some sort of shooting ability to keep the defense on their toes. As a result, Wemby takes over 50% of his shots from outside of 10 feet, and 25% of those shots are catch-and-shoot opportunities. However, Wemby shoots 29% from those opportunities, including shooting 27% from 3 on those opportunities. Compare that to better shooting big men like Miles Turner and Karl Anthony Towns, who shoot 41% and 42% respectively, and it's pretty clear that Wemby needs to improve in that category. But other than that, it's extremely impressive how Wemby has such great offensive instincts. He's a great cutter, has elite speed and isolation moves for his size, and has one of the most valuable scoring moves in the NBA today, which is the "I'm just gonna score over you because I'm 6 inches taller." You take that and you add his 42% from 3-point pull-up jumpers, and you have all the makings for an elite offensive player. And that takes me to another point. What is Victor Wembanyama's ceiling? It's a question that was widely debated before he was drafted, and one where I still feel as though we as NBA fans are in the dark. If you ask most people, they think it's higher than any player's potential in NBA history, but there are already questions regarding whether the Spurs can get him to his highest potential. We've seen discourse on major sports networks about the Spurs being, quote, on the clock before Wemby requests a trade. I don't think those conversations are fair to have for a first-year player, especially considering how much Wemby embraces San Antonio and the Spurs' history. But it's a point that could be fair to say in 4 to 5 years if the Spurs don't utilize their cap space, with Wemby making only $12 million a year. And with rumblings of Trae Young potentially going to San Antonio and the high first-round picks the Spurs are presumably going to have this year and next, I'd like to think that the Spurs are doing just fine attempting to surround Wemby with talent. But back to the main point of Wemby reaching his full potential, the question I find myself asking is how much better can this guy get? He's already a top 10 defender in the league, he already finds a way to dominate the game offensively, and he already can fill up a stat sheet on any given night. I just don't know what his ceiling is and where he stops growing as a basketball player. And that takes us to our final point today, and that's asking how realistic are those draft day expectations Wemby was given. Now, I could do a whole separate video highlighting the stupid things big sports media personalities have said about Victor Wembanyama, but the one that stands out to me is when someone, and I don't remember who said this, but someone said that if Wemby ended his playing career with a legacy like Kevin Durant or Hakeem Olajuwon, his career would be a disappointment. Now, I know I just spent the last 5 or 6 minutes telling you how historically great Wemby has been, how he's one of the most impressive rookies ever. But it would be foolish of me to say that if he had a career of 2 top 17 players ever, then his career would be disappointing. So in order to have the healthy conversation about Wemby, let's just take a step back from the wild proclamations sports media personalities give on a daily basis, and let's just look at Victor Wembanyama and Victor Wembanyama only. And if you do that, it wouldn't be crazy to say that Wemby has already met at least 80% of his pre-draft expectations. Now, the resume and the award success isn't there, but as a player, if you just look at his skill set, he's already one of the best defenders in the league who can put up 20 a night. That's almost everything I would want from someone who is considered generational in a draft. And if he didn't improve at all, which is just so extremely unlikely to happen, but if he didn't and he continued like this for 10 to 15 more years, his career would absolutely be a success. And I think that's where I've landed with the Victor Wembanyama potential talk. There may not be much more skills-wise for Wemby to improve on, but what makes a player elite is playing at a high level for long periods of time. To not just show that you can dominate, but to do it for over a decade. And whether Wemby can do it remains to be seen. But if I were to bet on it, I don't think anything regarding his play on the court can stop him from taking over the league. But what do you think? Comment below your thoughts on Victor Wembanyama's future, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more NBA videos just like this one. I'm Julian with TalkBackSports, and I'll see you next time.